Hi, everybody. Welcome to another roundtable discussion on this Monday, beautiful day. So September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, and as you've heard a couple podcasts ago, suicide is very important to me. The prevention of suicide. I lost my father to suicide, and depression is one of the leading causes that lead up to. There are many others. So we are choosing to speak about depression in honor of the month and kind of how we help our clients work through depression, the experiences that they have, and kind of lead them towards a place of hope and away from maybe some of the lower, sadder thoughts. I do want to also just make a quick note that none of us are doctors, and that we're going to speak to experiences from our clients and how we've helped our clients that are experiencing depression. None of this is, a must have, a have to. We're just we're sharing our experiences to see if any of it resonates and helps you. And with that, that's it.
Yeah, Natalie, like you said, you personally have experienced it. I fortunately have not, but so many people are struggling. I mean, depression and anxiety and, just lack of motivation and purpose are just so rampant right now everywhere with so many people. It's definitely something that I'm happy to be addressing.
Hi, everyone. It's MJ with MJ Guiding Others. Yes, depression. I'm also familiar with depression within the family unit, within my community. So I'm really ready to get on this topic and talk about it. Hi, everyone.
Hi everyone, Victoria Amador here with Soul Healing Tribe. And yeah, I think this is a very important topic and I'm excited to really address this today. So we'll see where we go. Hopefully we can bring some hope to the
Some
list.
hope, some light, yes. So first things first, I don't like people when they say I'm depressed. I like to help them rephrase that and say, you are experiencing depression, you are not depressed. Because it kind of already puts them in a space of, I can choose, I'm an active person here, I have choice. So that's something that I've always done. And I personally do it myself because I've also experienced depression. I feel most humans have. But so let's talk about methods, tips, how we've helped some of our clients through this experience of depression. I'll start. One of the biggest things I do, we talk about this almost every podcast, is self-compassion. But I like to put it in like a mindful way because I focus on mindfulness life coaching. But realizing and really capturing those moments when you're being completely harsh to yourself. You're judging yourself, overly judgy. When your self-criticism voice is extremely loud, like noticing when you're in those moments and trying, because it's not easy, and I acknowledge that, trying to take a moment and like a breath of like, hold on, would I be this harsh if it was my sister, my best friend, my mother, my partner? Like try to step outside of yourself and ask yourself, would you say those things and would you be that harsh to somebody else? So that's one way I kind of like to start helping people that are experiencing lower vibration like depression.
Yeah, I find coping with depression and anxiety, it requires you to do the opposite of what you're feeling. And that's why it's so challenging sometimes because you want to just crawl into a dark hole, but it's so vital to force yourself, movement, get out, don't remain stagnant because that's really what your mind is telling you, but you have to really, it's an internal battle and you have to force yourself. Movement, like you said, Natalie, mindfulness is so important, and self-compassion, which we keep coming back to because it's so important. um for myself, spirituality, and I'm not advocating any type of specific type of religion or spiritual approach, but when your life has a spiritual path, your problems, instead of being obstacles, become, you look at them as opportunities. So I find that that is such a powerful tool.
Before we continue, can we go over the definition of depression? Maybe somebody can pull it up. And
Yep.
I just want to make sure that people understand This is such an interesting topic to me because of my experience and family related challenges and so on, and my own personal experience when I was going through a very dark night of the soul. But I think a lot of people sometimes don't know that they're depressed because it might be so silent. That is common, right? Like common to be this way, where you're always just getting by. I don't know if somebody was able to pull up the definition.
I pulled it up. It's actually really, there's so many different subcategories, but the main thing says a group of conditions associated with the elevation or lowering of a person's mood, such as this depression or bipolar disorder. And so there are different subcategories underneath depression, like for example, clinical depression, bipolar disorder, postpartum depression. So there are different levels underneath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think maybe MJ can also give us, because I know you study some of this clinical stuff, but from my client perspective and my own experience, what I notice is that when it starts in childhood, that's your personality. Nobody will see the difference when you're really down or you become really good at masking it, that everybody on the outside sees one thing, and in the inside you're like this little poor child, but on the outside everybody sees amazingness, like, whoa, how can you do all of this, right? Well, you go home at nighttime and you go down, like it's just like the moment that you are by yourself. I don't know if anybody wants to add more to MJ.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I think it's from what I understand what you're saying, Victoria, it comes to how you feel comfortable in expressing yourself too. If you come from a family of individuals who are not afraid to show that vulnerability, like, hey, I'm sad, I'm going to show it right at this moment. But if you come from a family that does not like to express that, they wait till they're alone to cry, they wait till they're alone to show anger and whatnot. So it depends on what type of family that you come from or the environment around you, how you learn from that. From my experience, anything could trigger it too, like, bullying, a divorce could trigger, extreme bouts of depression, anything. It is all dependent on the person and their ability to cope with what's happening to them. And it requires like a strong foundation right from the beginning. And I did happen to look it up, like from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, like young people from 10 to 24, the age group, it increased by 62% from 2007 to 2021. And that says a lot of what's happening in our world with our young people.
And the school system too, because there is so much bullying, like you said, that increases the level of feeling like I don't belong here, right? From what you mentioned, MJ, I think you're right. Like some families are more open than others, but even when you have open families that are very open about their feelings and like what's going on, what happens is when you are the alpha in the family, the male for a lot of families, right? Or the one that is always looked up for answers, those people don't want to show that they don't have it together. Even in open families where everything is good, right? Because you're supposed to be the one holding everybody together. So a lot of clients that are male, they come with some of that depression, and I cannot let them know that I'm falling apart. Then the whole family will fall apart. Go ahead, Natalie.
Yeah, MJ, I love that you brought statistics and quotes, and that is so eye-opening. Like our young people, I'm just happy that you brought that up here, because for anyone listening, if you are feeling off or don't know how to express yourself or be that vulnerable, I trust that you gathered something here today, because there are ways for you to express these feelings. If you don't feel like you have that, there are other options. But I also wanted to talk to what you're saying, Victoria, which is, I call it the mask, right? So you're one person to the world, but then it's like a mask, because you come home or you go to where you live and you take that mask off and you're complete opposite person. And I experienced that firsthand with my dad. Whenever when people would say, wow, your dad is so helpful. He's always in the community. He's doing this, he's doing, and then at home, I would see something completely different. Like I had firsthand experience of that. And personally, I used to wear a mask too. When I lived in New York and I was working all the time and exhausted and didn't have an outlet and didn't feel safe to share with anyone, I was making it happen. I was working 50 to 60 hours in 1 week and like burning out both ends, but no one knew that it was like killing me inside. So the reason I'm sharing this is that mask is real. And if you feel like you're experiencing that and that you don't have an outlet to share, find one. Like finding connection and support systems. And this is where I help my clients with that, when they're experiencing depression. Like, okay, so where do you feel the safest? Who would you imagine speaking to about this if they're not here in person? So we do a lot of exercises like that to get them to start using the words that they're afraid to share, because isolation is real. And like Melvis mentioned, I think all of us did, when we're not feeling so great, the first instinct is I want to stay in the hole in my house and turn up the lights and give me the blanket. And that can only exacerbate that feeling of hopelessness. So I said a lot, but isolation, the best way to combat isolation is finding those support systems and tapping into that vulnerability in a way that makes you feel safe to do so.
Yeah, we haven't really spoken about the shame that comes up with a lot of this, like it is, I mean, aside from the stigma that's around depression and anxiety, because some people feel that makes them weak, it's a very shameful emotion, particularly for our men, I think. They're supposed to be strong and carrying the family, like you said, Victoria. But it can definitely be a spiral. But it's so important to realize that you're not alone and that we all feel these emotions at times. You just really, it's so important also to surround yourself with people that you can be yourself with, that you can open up to, because that mask gets heavy and it gets lonely. So, community and groups that you can take that mask off are vital.
Yeah. I know you mentioned the mask, and I do agree that it could be a little bit of that. But also in hypnotherapy, we talk about parts and we do parts therapy. And one of the questions is that part that has depression has a whole story to share. However, if it's not able to do that, it's going to keep it in, it's going to feel isolated. But then there is also another part that says, but life shouldn't be this way, or I need help. So whenever that part comes, it's like, please run with it, because otherwise the other one that is very depressed and feeling lonely and feeling sad and hopeless, helpless, is going to take over. Like, who's going to win, right? Like the moment that you have that little piece of, maybe there is another way, maybe just run with it, because you definitely need to get help, whether it is traditional therapy or something else, right? Like, you just have to know, to recognize that, like you say, Melvis, we all have those parts that from time to time, when we go through a life crisis, or like when you're getting older, over 40, and you're going through your midlife crisis, you're like, what is life about, right?
All right.
That can also lead to depression, because it's, my God, my life is almost over. That's what we think. So let's just pretend that I didn't say that, because I'm not there yet.
No, none of us are there yet. No way. But I like what you're saying. It's almost like I envision this little sliver of light amongst a dark room, and it's true. Whenever you feel, sense that kind of like, I can take a breath, I can get help, I can run with that. That little voice is there to help you and support you amongst us and other people. There is support out there. And I love that you mentioned that little glimmer of hope and light. Another thing I want to talk about too, and it may seem a little bit funny, but some people that work with me and they say, nah, I'm just not motivated. I'm not feeling it. I have zero motivation for anything, even the things I used to like to do. And sometimes I'll do like a quick little depression questionnaire, and not in the form of a doctor, just to see how their headspace is. And then they come back and they're like, you know what? I think I'm experiencing depression. I'm like, okay, cool. What I do with them then is kind of change their goals and set some new ones, and they're short-lived, nothing major, right? Like, I want to run a marathon in 10 years. No, like shorter goals to kind of give them a sense of purpose. Like, I have this thing in a month. Let's focus on that month. How can I get you from A to Z in this month so that that's your focus, and that alleviates a little bit of the other thoughts that are heavier and denser. So that's definitely and it seems counterintuitive because you're so low energy, lazy, lethargic, all those things. But having someone to talk to that kind of adds and gives you new baby steps. We don't have to call them goals, but baby attainable little small baby goals, I found have been so effective with some of my clients that have come feeling a little bit depressed.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can jump into the different exercises that we could do, or how to identify, I don't know what's best, how to identify if we're having, because you're right. I think identification of, do I have this problem, is crucial, right? Because a lot of people go 30, 40, 50, 60 years and they don't realize this is a problem in my life. Like, I cannot believe that I went this long because I didn't see it. I just didn't see it. So how do we help, if you can share with us, how do you help your clients identify, or are they coming to you knowing already, I have this problem?
I've had both experiences. One major severe case, this person wasn't aware. And so I recommended them to their primary care physician to have a depression screening. And like, I wrote them an email. I'm like, even show this email to your primary care doctor and they'll take it from there. Because there is such a thing. It's called a depression screening. You can go to your doctor, they take it from there, and then they can also give you like very good steps to immediately help you should you need it, right? And then so I think that that's really helpful to know that that option is out there. For people that already kind of know, I focus again on like goals and joy, and like, what brings you joy? And if they're like, I don't know right now, cool, what used to bring you joy? Let's tap into it. What would you like to bring you joy? Like, I kind of pull out of them the things that they're not expressing anywhere else. And this has also been coming up a lot with my clients lately, not expressing your desires, which leads to not experiencing joy a lot of times. And that happens when you're experiencing depression, because you're muting your desires, your voice, your needs. So where is the joy happening if they're not even being expressed out of your body? So those are two ways that I help.
One thing that comes up for me is we don't put enough emphasis on the symptom of constant alcohol use. That's something that a lot of us are doing in this society. It's such a part of every moment, right? Every fun moment. But that to me is a very telling sign. If you're abusing substances, or if you're just withdrawn and you're generally not a withdrawn person, but you find that you're keeping to yourself much more than normal, not getting things done. Just there's little things that we tend to just justify in, oh, I'm just tired, but it's really important. Natalie, like you said, there's that questionnaire, and it's probably something that we should all take, because it's important to realize if you're experiencing self-damaging emotions so that we can address them.
So yeah, for me, I think it's a combination, like Natalie said. Some people come and they have no idea that they have these issues, and sometimes they come because they know they have the issues. So what I find is that with those that are going through spiritual awakening, a lot of the time they don't realize that they have these issues. They're like, something is calling me, and that spiritual aspect is a driving force behind life. And then when they start working on the traumas, they're like, oh, Lord have mercy. I didn't see that coming, right? So the whole spiritual awakening is like just to get them to really release all the traumas, and that's why they're seeking those sessions. When a client comes and they already know that they're having depression, major or whatever it is, they already know. So we start working immediately through it. We don't have to like tiptoe around the whole idea, right? Because there's two different type of people with different needs. I do like working with those people that are depressed, because to see the change from the sessions that they have to get to the outcome is like beautiful. But they are different screens that you could do, and I can put it on the website for those that want to look at it, because some of the questions is like, oh shoot, I didn't see that coming. You know, like people pleasing, like Amelby said, substance abuse or some type of addiction, and you know, the different physical, emotional, sexual traumas are going to lead to some of that as well. And in my intake for my clients, I have so many questions that sometimes they don't know why I'm asking those questions, but it's helping me see how I need to guide them to get where they want to go. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that, because it could be forever.
I remember all those questions, and I was the one that was saying, like, the world, all these questions, but it didn't make sense until we got further along. I did want to bring up another way that people use masking, as you guys had mentioned, was overworking. Like, I found myself doing that. You know, I had worked so much that I didn't have time to focus on any type of depression. It was there, but I was so distracted. It was to the point where I could not bear it anymore. Like, you know, I had overworked myself, but there was an underlying condition that was happening within me, the depression. And then when it got quiet, when I wasn't working so much, then it was brought to light, and that's when I could finally release. And I see it happen a lot in the industry, social services that I work in. People, they work so much, but when it gets quiet, you start talking about different things. Then it happens, the tears, they can't, you know, hold back those tears. And I guess any industry, when people work so much, you know, they stop working so much and they can quiet down. Now you can finally go through the process of grieving and let it come out.
Yeah, that's a great point, MJ. I think when we take that, that's why some people need to always be on the go, because when they sit down, it's like, oh, what is life without X, Y, and Z? So it
Distractions.
can be, right. So anything else that we want to share today? I think we can, I don't know if we went through all the exercises that everybody wanted to share, but the screening for sure is a huge way to identify. And there's so many you probably can find on Google, right? Like if you're looking for that, you can find the different screens to see if you know. And I think those people that are heavily depressed or that had so much trauma, they know, you know, like it's common to know. But I think where my passion lies is with people that are silent, because life is more than just average. So when we are just standing still, right, and when we're just going through the motions, we should be checking with ourselves, what is going on with me?
Yes, so like a functioning depressed person, right? Like you're still, it's easy to say, no, I'm not depressed, I'm going to work, I'm doing the things that I need to do.
Kids.
But life is supposed to be joyful, and if you're not finding that, then it's worth looking into. And
yes, I like to call that coasting, right? Like if you're on a skateboard, like you're going, but not up, not fast, not so, like you're just kind of making it. It's important to identify. So we talked about a lot of other things today, and seeking treatment is so possible. I have we're going to put in the notes for the podcast today, 3 resources if anyone here is experiencing extreme depression that could lead to suicide or other harmful events. I'm going to put some of these notes in the podcast. But when you seek treatment, it's gonna give you a little flashlight, the little glimmer of hope. It's gonna give you a sense of purpose, which kind of helps kind of dig yourself back up out of that hole. And the purpose then leads to hope, and then more hope, and then joy, and then hope. You know, I trust that that leads you in the right direction. And everyone is different, but if any of this resonated for you today, I just hope you walk away with that treatment is available. People are here to listen without judgment, that we all feel down at times. All of us, I do, like all of us do, we're human. But at the end, that there is hope and there is joy.
Yeah. And I, while you were speaking, Natalie, I kept remembering, we're talking about depression for those that are having depression, and it's no, because what happens with people that have depression is that sometimes they're hearing the voices that says, you should feel bad, you should feel guilty, you should feel ashamed, right? But yeah, that could be a part of you, but it can also be something outside of you. So if traditional therapy hasn't been working, you might really want to be thinking about doing something else, like the alternative healing, to do spirit releasement, because a good part of the people that I see that are working with their medical providers, that are doing sessions with me, we find a lot of things that are not from this reality that may be causing a lot of that depression. So for those that have spent years and years in traditional therapy, you might want to also consider spirit releasement therapy. There is such a thing, and you can find it on Google, and you'll find different providers that are specializing in that technique.
Yeah, it's so true. And really to wrap it up, Melva said this, you are not alone, and that is so true. And it sucks. I know you don't believe this when you're in that dark place, but you're not alone. And hurting yourself, ending your life is never a solution. And you also don't have to have the solution now. I feel like people who are experiencing depression, like they need to know the answer, and like, it's okay. You don't need to have the solution right now. You can find treatment and help and support and get there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone, and we'll see you guys in the next one.